9 wins on the PGA Tour, a round of 59 that stopped the entire golf world. A man who, by every measure, refused to break. But there was one moment, not on a golf course, not under competitive pressure, where everything he loved was taken from him in seconds. Not by a rival, not by a bad shot, by a taxi. And what he did next is something golf has never quite seen before. Stuart Appleby did not grow up with a golf course in his backyard. He grew up with cows. Kahuna is a small farming town in rural Victoria, Australia, the kind of place where the nearest golf professional was an hour and a half away by car. His parents would make that drive to take lessons, and when they came home, a teenage Stuart would sit with his mother and ask her to walk him through everything. Every drill, every tip, every detail. Then he would go outside and practice on the family dairy farm, hitting golf balls from one paddock to the next, using the fence lines as fairways and the open fields as his driving range. There was no coaching, no structured program, no green to practice his short game, just a kid, a club, and a lot of open land. He had grown up watching Greg Norman on television, but as Appleby himself later said, "I was from the bush, watching Greg Norman on TV, but it was a world away." That distance, geographical, financial, psychological, shaped everything about how he approached the game. While American juniors were earning college scholarships and playing on manicured courses, Appleby was figuring it out on his own. He would later put it plainly, in America, if you want to make it as a golfer, you go to college on a scholarship. In Australia, you go to the airport with a plane ticket. He turned professional in 1992 and began working his way through the Australasian Tour. 3 years later, he bought that plane ticket. The next chapter was about to begin. When Stuart Appleby arrived in the United States in 1995, nobody knew his name. He entered the Korn Ferry Tour, the second tier of professional golf in America, and won his very first event, the Monterey Open. That made him only the 8th player in the history of the tour to win on his debut. He followed it with a second victory that same season, finished 5th on the money list, and earned his PGA Tour card for the following year. By 1997, he was ready. At the Honda Classic, Appleby fought his way to the final round and held on to win by a single stroke. It was his first PGA Tour victory. And one of the men he edged out in that final pairing was Payne Stewart, one of the most respected figures in the game. Stewart, rather than walking away as a disappointed rival, did something unexpected. He took the young Australian under his wing. As Appleby recalled years later, "He was the nicest guy to me. He definitely took me under his wing." It was the beginning of a friendship that would define the years ahead and a career that was only just getting started. By 1998, Stuart Appleby had everything a young professional golfer could want. 2 PGA Tour victories, a rising world ranking, a home in Isleworth, one of Orlando's most exclusive communities, where his neighbors included Tiger Woods, Mark O'Meara, and Payne Stewart. More money than he had ever imagined, growing up on a dairy farm in rural Victoria. And he had Renee. They had met in 1992 during his early days on the Korn Ferry Tour. She became his caddy, his travel companion, and eventually his wife. They married in December of 1996 and built a life together on the road, the kind of life where every tournament, every city, every hotel room was shared. His fellow players noticed that Appleby almost never joined the boys for a night out. He preferred to be with Renee. Nobody questioned it. They understood. He would later describe her in terms that said everything about what she meant to him. "The time we spent together was real good quality. I don't have any regrets." I feel like she was the first prize of a raffle, so to speak, in life, and picking partners, I was lucky enough to win her. They were not just husband and wife. They were a team. And in the summer of 1998, after the British Open, they decided to take a short vacation. A few days in London before crossing to Paris. A rare, quiet moment in a life spent moving from tournament to tournament. It would be the last trip they ever took together. On July 23, 1998, Stuart and Renee Appleby stepped out of a taxi outside Waterloo Station in London. They were heading to Paris. Stuart moved to the front of the cab to pay the driver. Renee stood at the back, next to the luggage. Then a second taxi reversed without warning. In a matter of seconds, Renee was pinned between the two vehicles. Stuart heard it before he saw it. He ran to her. She was unconscious. He and a stranger who happened to be nearby dropped to the ground and began performing CPR on the pavement, right there in front of the station, trying to bring back a heartbeat that was already fading. He later described those moments in a way that stopped people cold. It was not scary at the time. I didn't feel very upset. I was very surprised at how calm I felt. I knew it was a very serious situation, but I felt like I had it under control. This was a real person. This was my wife. That eerie calm is not as unusual as it sounds. Psychologists describe it as a dissociative response, the mind's way of keeping a person functional in the face of an event too large to process in real time. The body acts. The grief comes later. In Appleby's case, the grief would arrive in waves he could not yet predict in the days and months and years that followed. Renee was taken to hospital. She was pronounced dead on arrival. She was 25 years old. Stuart Appleby flew home a widower. He was 27 years old. And the person who had shared every part of his professional life, the tournaments, the hotel rooms, the early mornings on the range, was gone. The news spread through the PGA Tour the way news travels in a close community, fast and with genuine shock. Professional golf is different from most sports. The players spend their lives on the road together, staying in the same hotels, eating at the same restaurants, living as neighbors in the same gated communities. The wives know each other, the children grow up together. When something happens to one family, it happens to all of them. Billy Mayfair won the Buick Open that same week. He dedicated his victory to Renee Appleby. Tiger Woods, who lived down the street from Stuart and Isleworth, spoke on behalf of an entire community. We welcome him back, and we just want to say, if he ever needs us at any time, he can find us. Pick up the phone, and we're always there for him at any time. We'll drop whatever we're doing, because to lose a loved one like that so quickly and tragically it's just a shame. Payne Stewart, who had become Stuart's mentor and one of his closest friends, said simply, Renee was everything to him. 3 weeks after the accident, Stuart arrived at the PGA Championship in Sammamish, Washington. He competed. When he later reflected on that week, he was direct about what it actually was. I know I did a pre-tournament media interview where I looked disheveled and just beaten down, and that's pretty much how I felt. He missed the cut. But the act of competing, of standing on a tee box and swinging a golf club when the rest of his world had collapsed was, as he put it, therapy through playing. It was the beginning of the only road back he had. If 1998 had broken Stuart Appleby, 1999 threatened to finish the job. He was still finding his way back to the game, still working through what it meant to compete without the person who had been at the center of his life when, in October of that year, a private plane lost cabin pressure over the American Midwest and crashed into a field in South Dakota. Everyone on board was killed. One of them was Payne Stewart, the mentor, the neighbor, the friend who had taken a young Australian under his wing at his very first PGA Tour victory and never let go. Gone. Appleby responded the only way he knew how, by honoring the person rather than mourning publicly. At the Tour Championship that same week, he organized a tribute among the players. They wore knickers and long socks, the signature style that had made Stewart one of the most recognizable figures in the sport. It was a quiet, dignified gesture from a man who had already learned more about loss than most people encounter in a lifetime. Years later, Appleby opened up about what those 2 years had done to him. Between losing Renee and meeting Ashley, those were confusing, depressing years that took the edge off my golf. I wasn't concerned about being the best player in the world anymore. I changed. I felt more vulnerable. I would have traded everything that came my way to have Renee and live with her in a cardboard box. Golf did not wait for Stuart Appleby to be ready. But Stuart Appleby came back anyway. The Houston Open win in April of 1999 was the first crack of light. 9 months after Waterloo, He stood on the final green with a one-stroke lead over John Cook and Hal Sutton, holding together a round that had very little to do with golf and everything to do with survival. He won. Looking back on that week 25 years later, he wrote simply, "More importantly, that was also my first PGA Tour victory since my wife Renee died a year earlier in a car crash in London." He did not pretend it was just another tournament. He never did. The years that followed were uneven grief. Does not follow a schedule, but the game slowly came back to him. In 2003, he won the Las Vegas Invitational for his fourth PGA Tour title. Then came the run that announced his full return to the elite level of the sport. 3 consecutive victories at the Mercedes Championships in Maui, Hawaii in 2004, 2005, and 2006. No player had won that event 3 times in a row since Gene Littler accomplished the feat nearly 50 years earlier. By March of 2004, Appleby had climbed to number 8 in the world rankings. The boy from the dairy farm in Kahuna had become one of the best golfers on the planet. By the summer of 2010, Stuart Appleby had not won a PGA Tour event in 4 years, 110 consecutive tournaments without a victory. He was 39 years old. The conversation around his career had quietly shifted from what he might still achieve to what he had already done. On August 1st, 2010, he teed off in the final round of the Greenbrier Classic in West Virginia, sitting 7 strokes behind the leader, playing 3 groups ahead of the final pairing. Nobody was watching him. Nobody needed to be. What followed was one of the most extraordinary rounds in the history of professional golf. He played the front 9 at 6 under. He eagled the par 5 12th hole. Then 3 straight pars, and just when it seemed the momentum might stall, he birdied the 15th, 16th, and 17th holes in succession with approach shots that left him no more than 15 feet from the flag each time. Standing on the 18th tee, a par 3 to finish, he needed 1 more birdie to shoot 59. He hit an 8-iron to 9 feet. Then he rolled the ball into the center of the hole. I had a quiet voice in the back of my head saying, "You're going to make this. You're going to make this." He said afterward, "It was just a beautiful round of golf from a feeling point of view." To understand why 59 matters, consider this. Across the entire history of the PGA Tour to that point, only 4 players had ever broken 60 in an official event. Appleby became the 5th and the first to do it on a par 70 course. Broadcaster Jim Nantz called it the changing rebirth moment of a career. He won the tournament by a single stroke. Stuart Appleby finished his PGA Tour career with 9 victories, nearly $30 million in earnings, and a round of 59 that will be part of golf history for as long as the sport is played. But the legacy that matters most cannot be measured in statistics. In New South Wales, Australia, the Renee Appleby Memorial Trophy is awarded every year to the state's most outstanding female junior golfer. A young woman who never knew Renee Appleby will one day hold that trophy and through it carry a name forward that might otherwise have faded. That is not a small thing. After Payne Stewart's death, Appleby became one of the key figures in the lives of Stewart's 2 children. The neighbor who had lost everything understood, perhaps better than anyone, what it meant to rebuild. He remarried in 2002. He and his wife Ashley have 4 children. He now competes on the PGA Tour Champions and still plays